Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the weekend. We're off at Colossal Con, where you clearly are not, otherwise you wouldn't be bothering to watch this video. But if you are, thank you for doing so. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe while you're here. We're talking about the movie Brightburn, which just came out recently, and Roxstar, you want to just give a quick description of exactly what this movie is supposed to be about based off of the trailer that we watched?
It's supposed to be about an alien baby who crashes into Earth, and two adult Earthlings go pick up this baby and raise it to be their son. And then
It's just like Superman.
it all goes wrong. The child is evil, recognizes he has superpowers, and starts terrorizing the community.
And that is the premise that we're dealing with here. It's cast as a horror movie rather than as a serious drama or anything like that. Very little comedy, unless you're certain types of theater goers, as Roxstar can tell you. What do we have to say about Brightburn? Well, do we want to give them the spoiler-free rendition?
I mean, we could, but I almost feel like we shouldn't even bother just because there's really not that much to spoil, to be honest.
That is a fair point.
I mean,
It goes exactly how you would expect it to go.
if you want to go Superman, it basically, his parents are no different than Jonathan and Martha Kent. So, I mean, other than the fact that they throw in a plot point about infertility, which I'm not 100% sure what they were going there with. Like, they just throw in the plot point. I feel like it never really comes up again except for one or two jabs that the mother's extremely sensitive about. And even then,
I mean, I guess it offered them a context in which they could get away with just saying they adopted the kid, but I mean, like, they didn't have to do that. The only other thing I could think of is they wanted to provide psychological reinforcement as to why the mom wanted to stick by the kid for so long, because they couldn't have kids, and that he was everything. He represented everything for her. Like, I don't know.
I feel like that could have happened with either a mother who birthed them or not. Like, whether infertility or not. Like, I just feel like that's some trope that they want to put on infertile women, and I don't think that's fair. The other reason I feel like it doesn't matter whether or not we spoil anything for Brightburn is it's your typical generic horror movie.
Very tropish.
I mean,
you really won't be surprised at all by the progression of this plot. I mean, in fairness, like, that's my thing. I see narrative progression. It's like, oh, that's going to happen. But I mean, like, I feel like anyone could see this.
I don't watch horror movies. As Panda and as Streak would tell you, I am a notorious scare baby. I don't. Nope. Will not watch them.
Rockstar's never seen Child's Play.
I refuse to see Child's Play.
Oh, you can't refuse.
No.
Because you have a new project coming up, and I get to pick one.
I hate you already. The one thing that I think the detriment to other tropey horror movies is this one starts off with the jump scares and the noises quick. Like, it's right off the bat. They don't even try to ease you into the jump scares. They do it from the very beginning with stuff that's not even horror related. Like, the mom walks into the barn, is looking for the kid, and the jump scare is like one of the first things. And
like foreshadowing. Oh, he's going to jump scare you guys over and over again. And eventually,
I don't know.
The thrill wears off a little bit.
I was going to say the first one got me, which I was actually very angry at myself for. And then the rest of the movie, I just didn't jump. Now, I will admit that there was a part of the movie I looked away, because the other thing I don't like is gore, unless there's a reason for the gore. And it really does get gory later on in the movie in very unbelievable manners. I mean, yeah, I get the kid Superman, but how do you break your jaw on the steering wheel in the angle that they dropped the car?
I mean, it made sense, but it made sense. Like, it's feasible.
I guess.
Actually, I guess the phrase I don't want to use is it makes sense. It's feasible, the way they present certain things that happen in the movie. And at the same time, I'm like, if you are in that situation, I just assume that you have the mental capacity to not angle yourself for that to happen?
I don't know. It just...
Like I've seen weirder but more likely deaths in the Final Destination series. Like,
I guess the one thing is, I was kind of hoping going into this there'd be more psychological horror. I didn't really expect this much gore out of the movie, considering that there's really not much in the trailers except for that one scene with the glass in the eye.
yeah.
And even then, I could actually understand that as a horror motif in this movie, because, like, I've had glass in my eye. I know what that feels like. Like, clearly, it's not to the extent that the woman in the trailer has glass in her eye and later on in the movie, but I can understand that as something to keep the suspense and the fear in you going while the movie is. But a lot of the gore that happens in this, I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, actually, come to think of it, the glass scene is probably the only, like, full-on suspenseful sequence in the movie.
There are
That's actually done well.
Yeah, I was going to say, there are some moments I enjoy, but they're very few and far between.
Oh, the ominous red glowy eye things was kind of cool the first couple times I saw it. That was alright. I like that.
I mean, I think the one thing is, I feel like a kid with his amount of superpowers wouldn't be like a cat playing with its toy with his villain.
No, he'd be more like a hornet, forcefully having his way with you.
But
That's literally foreshadowed at the beginning of the movie, like every good horror movie. It's like, yep, that's exactly how that's going to happen.
And I guess the only way they could, I don't know, make suspense or keep the horror going was making him like a cat playing with, a rat he caught. But I don't know, I did not enjoy any of that.
I definitely felt like they couldn't decide how best to approach the psychology of his character. In the end, I feel like they decided to put him squarely in the Omen. In fact, this movie reminded me a lot of The Omen, the most recent version. I mean, I've never seen the original, but like the new one where it's just like, oh yeah, kid's the Antichrist, nothing you can do. Yeah, the whole point of the movie is to suspend your belief, like you're never quite sure that he is the Antichrist, but they were terrible at that. And they were terrible at giving you at communicating that this kid has some kind of scruples about being a complete and utter jerkface.
I mean, I agree, and slightly, I don't understand, because for me the plot point about the kid being the Antichrist was like clear, but it also feels like the writers are trying to keep you in suspense of disbelief with the whole he's guided to the spaceship at night, so you're kind of wondering if the spaceship was indoctrinating him, like. That could have been a plot point, but
they never exploited that, though.
They never exploited it. They never exploited it any more than just, hey, he spent a few nights going towards that place, and red glowy eyes, and I don't know. The plot seemed very thin.
A bad blood story, like some other major television series that recently concluded. You didn't tell me how you got there.
I don't know. It just seemed very thinned out. It also seemed like they.
I believe there's good in you.
I feel like they also wanted to make sure that all the violence was directed at adults, like all the gory violence. The most that ever happens to another child is.
There's stuff that happens to one child.
Yeah, but it's really not that extreme as what happens to the adults, and I wonder if there was a reason for that, considering they were pulling a bullying angle on it too. It's like, why put the bullying angle in there if then you're not going to have the kid turn around and take his revenge out on them?
We discussed that a little bit, I remember. They definitely frame the act that happens against a kid as pseudo-defensive and in connection to that bullying. But you're right, he never goes after the bullies. The only people he goes after initially are people who present a threat to him in some big scope thing. And I was trying to reason my way through it, because I was like, yeah, I could see that he would only want, because he clearly is not sure about exposing himself on some level at the first. But at the same time, I'm like, well, given who his first real victim is, that doesn't make sense, because she's not presenting an immediate threat to him. He just wanted to get back
at her for something, because he's also shown to have like no connection to his mom or dad, which is what I would think he would have the strongest connection to, but instead to a female girl. And
well, see, that's the thing.
That's not explored. You get one little tiny plot thread, and then that's just dropped off, and he just goes on to do other things.
Well, but that's the thing. They definitely put in all the things that would point to his parents are the only people he cares about, but then he never acts like it.
No.
Well, no, like some of the things that he does are precipitated by conversations he has with his parents, which would like kind of lead you to believe that he's not acting out of malice per se. It's the whole, oh, I'm overpowered and I'm just going to do the things that I want because I'm basically an animal and humans are animals. And I'm a bigger animal.
And I'm superior to you.
Yeah. And I mean, like, but then they ignore that. And then there's that part where he's talking to someone else, and you get the impression that he doesn't, he's close-knit with his parents enough to know that they know about him. So I'm not sure whether to interpret that as just bad writing, or if the whole point the whole time was that, oh no, he just didn't want his parents were like, one of his weaknesses, like they could expose him or something. Like, I don't get it.
I feel like there's a bunch of good ideas that went nowhere, and then I don't know if they purposely left it so that it was like open ended and you had to make your own best guess about stuff, because it just, a lot of plot points seem to go nowhere. And the one thing I will say is the kid is actually really good at playing up his personality.
Yeah, that's true.
He reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you've watched this movie, but there's a movie called The Good Son back in the 80s. It was like early Elijah Wood, child Elijah Wood, and Macaulay Culkin when he was still a kid. Macaulay Culkin played the bad son, the evil kid who just wanted to like do all these evil things for apparently no reason. He plays a lot like Macaulay Culkin in that movie. Who, if you watch that movie, it genuinely terrified me when I watched it, and it still does at times. But that being said, the Good Son, which is an old tropey 80s movie, I felt was a better movie than this.
It definitely feels like any interpretation I could give you about this film has been skewed, because I've seen Chronicle, which has a similar premise in the idea that kids kind of become superheroes. Though that's more like that's closer to like Akira than it is to Superman. That being said, I just don't like Brightburn that much. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, there's a couple things in there that are kind of cool. You can see that there are good ideas, like you said. But the whole thing, putting it together, is just kind of feels like a lazy mess. It's like there's so many opportunities of what you could do with that, and you just ignored it. Maybe the problem is that when you deal with a horror movie genre, you naturally gravitate more towards the... I don't want to phrase it this way because there are horror movies that I like, but like the cheap thrill aspect, like you need to keep things going. Though that again raises questions because the beginning is kind of slow. It
is very slow, and I will tell you that like I said, the jump scares start really, really early in this movie. And a big problem was trying to stay in the film for me. That was the biggest problem for the theater. Not just because the movie's plot is just so dull, and there were times that the movie itself pulled me out of it, but there was someone in my theater that was laughing at every jump scare and every gory part of the movie. And I was like, what the...
You have an experience. You were in your theater.
I felt like I was in a comedy because he was giggling like a schoolgirl. It wasn't just like laughing. He was giggling like a little schoolgirl every time a jump scare or gore moment happened. And I'm like, try to focus on the movie. Ignore the sound effects behind you. Because think about it. Horror movies are very much about sound. And mood. So once somebody in the audience tears you away from that too... It just becomes really hard to concentrate. That being said, I think my only big favorite part, I won't ruin because it was literally
the confrontation
the
with
end.
the police?
No, the end. Like past that.
End.
The end. Like basically the, if you want to say the post-credit scene, that's not really a post-credits. It's just right before, you don't stay for after-credit scene if you actually go see it. There is none. This is just right before you would get up to leave the theater anyways. But I really don't want to ruin it, but it is good. That's the only part that I liked was at the very end. And I mean
it was entertaining, I guess, at the end, but it's like
it's not worth sitting through the movie to get there. In fact, I hate to say this, because I'm pretty sure there are more bad than good can come out of my comment. But I feel like fan fiction could make this movie better.
I know, right?
Because me and Streak...
It's just so cool.
Me and Streak were having a conversation about all the cool things they could have added into this movie to make it just a little bit better. And if it took us a couple of minutes to come up with like 10 new good ideas that would have made the movie better, then maybe it's not even worth seeing the movie. I could write a better fan fiction. And that's not good.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Anything else to say? Was there anything that we liked, like, that we haven't already mentioned?
No, I literally, there's the one scene where the dad tries to...
Yeah, there's a confrontation with the father that was pretty decent. How that scene played out was cool.
Even right before that scene, how he gets the kid into the situation to confront him is actually, I think, kind of clever for a horror movie. But
the confrontation with the police is pretty good.
Yeah. Even the gore in that movie, that part of the movie actually made a lot more sense for me. So I'm not against the entire idea of gore. It's just, there's got to be a purpose. And that last scene with the confrontation that last scene with the police had a purpose.
Some of the effects stuff I liked, like glowy eyes, I thought that was pretty cool. But just feels like underutilized concepts litter this movie throughout.
It is unfortunate because I think while everybody else didn't feel like a real character to me, the kid himself showed his acting chops. I think he actually did a really good job of convincing you that he literally had no remorse for what was going on. And
so
if it wasn't for this movie, I think he could have a career.
Fault isn't with the actor in this sense. It's just the writing.
Because even the mother and the father, the father I believed a little, but the mom, a lot of her actions I can't. So, do you want to give it a rating out of 4?
Not really. I mean, I wouldn't go see it in the theater again. But I said that about Aladdin, so technically I'm wrong about that. Fun fact: Aladdin has a section that's good, but for this, I'm gonna have to give it a 1 out of 4. Like, there's some stuff in there that's kind of cool to watch, but you might as well find a highlights reel or rent it on DVD from... Wow, we're in the age of...
Blu-ray.
No, forget the Blu-ray. I was going to say go
video on demand.
Yeah, rent video on demand and just click through the highlights. That's what you get. Like,
I was going to say I'd give it a 1 out of 4 too, and not only that, it's definitely bad for a movie that's only in select theaters.
Oh, that's true.
I wouldn't even bother. Me and Streak had to get out of our way just to go see this movie. So I wouldn't even bother going out of your way to see this movie in the theater at all. It's just not worth the time.
That being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's our opinion. If you have a similar one, or you've watched the movie and would like to offer your own opinion, contrary or otherwise, feel free to comment down below.
We'd love to hear it.
And in the meantime, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button so you can continue watching our awesome content. And if you are in Ohio right now, come see some panels. Catch you later.
Bye-bye. Bye.